Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, this is a very special podcast because it is number 2000 in our recorded podcast. Number 2000. We've done, of course, many more because of the live streams and everything, but in terms of recorded podcasts, this is number 2000. And so it's a milestone, and congratulations. And I guess we should sort of say something to Buddy because his buddy said, "Yeah, that was me.
Yeah,
I
I
did
was
it.
here for the entire ride.
That was all me. The Apple just joined at some point, but that was me. So thank you. Really appreciate it. I hope Gagglers have appreciated what we have done, and we hope that we'll continue doing this, and that we'll be here to commemorate number 3000.
Well, at the rate we're going, we're going to be there pretty fast, George. Okay. Not a lot.
Yes.
You
Um,
know what I like about this is that this is we every time George and I do a podcast, we're doing the first draft of history. I like that.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can judge us, did we get something right, get something wrong?
Yeah.
That doesn't drive me. I'm not, that's not my motivation, but it's very unfiltered. Okay.
Mhm.
We're reacting to what we see in the here and
Exactly.
now. Okay. And I think that's really valuable. Um, better than how to put it? We don't come at from it from a strictly ideological point of view. We're not
No,
trying to score political points,
no,
okay?
I think so.
And I get a lot of criticism here, and my regular job is that but I thought you liked him. I thought no, I don't work. That's not how I
Right.
operate. Somebody disappoints me. I don't care who it is. I'll say I'm disappointed.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right. No, I think
We're
that
not paid $7,000 a podcast, everybody.
yeah.
George knows that better than I do. Okay.
Exactly. We definitely do not get 7,000 per podcast. We don't get 7,000 per post either. So no, I think it is the first draft of history in the sense that we are responding to day-to-day events, and we respond in light of what information is available. When more information becomes available, then we're forced to revise our views. So yeah, we get some things wrong, we get some things right. But what else are you supposed to do? You can only respond to the information that is available. And I think we try to form
And
the
it's
best
not hard.
judgments in light of what's available.
It's not hard to admit you're wrong.
Right, right. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, exactly.
There's a nobility to that, actually. All right.
That's right. That's right. Um, so the topic that I want to discuss in this number 2000 podcast is the obvious determination of the Trump administration, and in this case, led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, to remove President Nicolas Maduro from power in Venezuela. I mean, they're going to do it by hook or by crook, but they are determined.
They're going to do it.
Yeah,
They're going to do it.
they're going to do it. There's no question. And there was already talk, which the media are being used as a springboard to announce plans for military strikes. I mean that they're coming. So here, for instance, is a story from this is the New York Times. U.S. deploys aircraft carrier to Latin America as drug operation expands. And of course, we know that when they do this, then this whole drug thing is just completely bogus.
And look
And
at
it's, everyone knows, this is all targeted at Maduro.
this drug operation.
Yeah,
As a means of regime change, forced
exactly.
regime change of a democracy, whatever features or characteristics or even failings that it has, but it is genuinely popular, okay?
Right.
But I mean, again, the New York Times is such a disgrace,
Yes.
okay? Drug operation. I mean, why don't they put it in air quotes? Drug oper. I mean, can you show a little irony
Yeah,
here? That
that's right. The
it's
drug
not what
operation.
it is.
That's right. But of course, all of it is done with a view to escalating. I mean, they're just shooting boats. They have no idea whom they're killing. I mean, it's just, they just boom, they hit some boats. Oh, they were involved in drug smuggling. Well, how do you know that? Well, we just thought they were. I mean, they look like drug dealers. I mean, so we just did it. Interestingly, when they managed to uh, catch one of them, they actually handed him back. They didn't put him in leg irons and hauled him to the United States to face criminal prosecution. They just sort of sent him back to
So
Venezuela.
if we use that as thing, so if Osama bin Laden was captured, so he wasn't returned to Saudi Arabia, was he?
No, no, it's so this is how they're going about this, and they have this the enhanced American presence will bolster U.S. capacity to detect, monitor, and disrupt illicit actors and activities that compromise the safety and prosperity of the United States. Um,
You know,
this
George, one thought that crossed my mind, I did this on my program yesterday. So if there's a forced regime change in Venezuela, which is likely, we can talk about if it will succeed and what success means. I would bet you a lot of money that the same amount of drugs will be illicitly
Yeah,
exported to the United States. I don't think that will,
I
the
don't,
whole
I
drug
don't, I don't
thing.
think so. You remember when
Yeah,
they went after Noriega? I mean,
yeah,
Noriega,
well, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like he was the leader of Panama, and the same accusation was made against him that he's in charge of drug trafficking. All the drug problem in the United States is because these drugs are being transported through Panama. And Noriega is the one who's transporting. It didn't change anything. There was no diminution of drugs entering the United States once they invaded Panama and arrested Noriega and hauled him
Well,
off
I think you
to
can make
prison.
the, I didn't do the research, but I think I feel safe to say that with Noriega's departure, as it were, drugs only increased into
I think
America.
it did. I think I don't think it was even a slight diminution, like
No
for
interruption,
a couple of
everybody.
days. Exactly. Well, at least we have 2 days of no drugs entering the United States. Um, and then here, we have since late August, the U.S. military has deployed about 10,000 troops to the Caribbean, about half of them on eight warships, and half in Puerto Rico for what the administration says is a counterterrorism and a counter narcotics mission. Now, they've already said that Maduro is the narco terrorist in chief. He's the one who's responsible for the flow of drugs into the United States. And so here we have um, that this was well, and now this is very interesting that the New York Times, the Trump administration authorizes covert CIA action in Venezuela. It's very interesting that the New York Times reports this. So the administration authorizes it. It's covert, so it's supposed to be secret. So
Yeah,
you
why, if
write
it's
about it
covert,
in the New York Times.
why are you talking?
Um, the development comes as the U.S. military.
Does the New York Times want to say they're on the good side of the angels by report? You know,
Yeah,
we got a scoop here. Oh, we're telling a secret. Oh, the administration. No, this is a pipeline of propaganda.
yes, it is. But of course, it serves the purpose, which is, of course, it's going to be read in Caracas by the people around Maduro, and basically it's telling them, we're coming. It's just a matter of time. So make your arrangements now, but we are coming, and that's the whole point of having these stories in the New York Times. Um, And and here we have the Trump administration has secretly authorized, how is it secret, to conduct covert operations in Venezuela. And then the authorization is the latest step in the Trump administration's intensifying pressure campaign against Venezuela. And then for weeks, the U.S. military has been targeting boats off the Venezuelan coast. It says are transporting drugs, killing 27 people. The number has now gone up. And American officials have been clear privately that the end goal is to drive Mr. Maduro from power. Um, and here Trump has continued the policy that he pursued in the first administration with John Bolton at that time. That was his project. Wasn't very successful, but they were obviously determined to, hey, we got to get the job done ourselves. They left it to local people. That didn't work, so they're just going to go ahead and use American force directly. Um, and Mr. Trump acknowledged Wednesday that he had authorized the covert action and said the United States was considering strikes on Venezuelan territory. Ooh, good. We are certainly looking at land now because we've got the sea very well under control, the president told reporters. And then the new authority would allow the CIA to carry out lethal operations in Venezuela and conduct a range of operations in the Caribbean.
As long as it's illegal and how it's defined in the United States is fine. But the people on the receiving end, they have no agency, no
No,
legitimacy.
no, 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 that's right. But it's very interesting that even when they write these stories, and it's all written in this very matter of fact way, and you think, how do you just get to decide who is to rule in Venezuela? I mean, how do you do this? What, where do you get the right to decide who should be in power in Venezuela? Certainly, I mean, that's, well, of course, we know better as to who should be in power. And uh, so here we have the scale of the military buildup in the region is substantial, and against they repeat that. Um, and here the Trump administration strategy on Venezuela, developed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio with help from John Ratcliffe, aims to oust Mr. Maduro from power. Mr. Ratcliffe said little about what his agency is doing in Venezuela, but he has promised that the CIA under his leadership would become more aggressive. Well, that's a relief. I was afraid that it would be less aggressive. During his confirmation hearing, Mr. Ratcliffe said he would make the CIA less averse to risk and more willing to conduct covert action when ordered by the president.
Since when has the CIA been adverse to risk?
It's very, when he says these things, you always kind of think, now we have the record of the CIA, we have the overthrow of Arbenz in Guatemala, which, hardly anyone now remembers. That was back in 1954. We had CIA overthrow of Allende in Chile. Then we had the CIA um, uh, organizing the invasion of Cuba by Cuban exiles. That was the Bay of Pigs debacle. We had the CIA training the Contras in Central America during the 1980s. None of these operations were exactly successful. I mean, you can't say, well,
But they weren't but they weren't adverse to risk.
they were not averse to risk, but in terms of helping the people on the ground, I don't see how quite the CIA helped anyone on the ground. I mean, they kept that civil war going in Nicaragua throughout the 1980s. Nicaragua was a tiny, poor country. I don't think they benefited from that war.
Well, and what's interesting is I think it was on Sean Hannity where Lady Graham was on, and they kind of jokingly, or maybe not jokingly, I don't remember if it was Lady Graham or it was witless Hannity, that Venezuela could be the 51st state. See, that's how they treat these guys,
Yes.
as if it's only its geography has no political border.
Right.
We can determine whatever we want.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
Of course, I mean, neither one of them want to have Venezuela as part of the United States proper, because that would mean I don't know how many millions of people live in
Exactly. They
Venezuela.
become citizens of the United
They
States.
become citizens of the United
Yeah.
States. I don't
Yeah.
know what they want control over
Right.
Venezuela
Right.
and over its people. But that's as far as it goes. Okay.
Yes.
But it's very telling that they, in a very kind of off the cuff way, I'll make it the 51st state.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They have no, we'll decide. We'll
That's right.
decide.
That's right. That's right. But they were not. Look, I mean, there have been people who've been pressing for Puerto Rico to become the 51st state, and it's not the 51st state because obviously then you've got to get a whole lot of Puerto Ricans who will become citizens of the United States, and therefore nobody wants that, and that's why Puerto Rico is in kind of limbo. Nobody exactly knows what exactly its status is, but it's sort of owned by the United States, sort of
Yeah, well,
isn't.
they know what status they don't want for it. Okay.
Exactly. Um, and then here, um, that the administration has asserted in legal filings that Mr. Maduro controls Tren de Aragua. And as we'll see in a minute, that's not what the intelligence agencies, that Tulsi Gabbard, she's the head of all of the intelligence agencies. That's not what she has determined, that
Yeah, but
Maduro is the head of Tren de Aragua.
some of the guys around her lost their jobs
That's right.
for.
That's right. Um, and then we have the Wall Street Journal and saying U.S. eyes striking Venezuelan military targets used for drug trafficking. So now so they're already eyeing striking Venezuelan military targets. That's military targets used for drug trafficking. So that's
Yeah, I mean, just everybody, just look at this here. Now, George is looking at the main broadsheets here. There's no dissent.
no, no,
There's no
no.
dissent whatsoever. When there is ample evidence that this is complete rubbish.
Yes, that's right.
Complete. But, oh, George already said very serious, very professional language here,
Yes, that's right. That's right.
They think they're doing a public service.
That's
I
right.
mean, what was it after the invasion of Iraq? The New York Times. We'll be more vigilant. We'll be more
Right.
careful.
That's right. Yeah.
Um, no, they're not.
No.
They're actually, in my opinion, because I talked to two Venezuelans yesterday, it's more callous and cavalier than ever before.
I think so too. Because the interesting thing is that back in the 1980s, when the Reagan administration was waging that covert war against Nicaragua, and then but supporting El Salvador and then waging this war in Guatemala, there was a lot of criticism. It was a controversial policy, and there was
Good point.
dissent. The Democrats, many of them dissented from what Reagan was doing. There doesn't seem to be any of that dissent now. So it's like there's a happy consensus that somehow we
Yeah, I
need to
seem to
remove
remember.
Maduro.
I may be wrong, but there were 60-minute segments that were very critical.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
60 Minutes was taken seriously in
Right.
those
That's
days.
right. That's right. Um, and so
And Iran-Contra, the Reagan administration was not given a pass.
no, 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 no. That was a serious business. That was I think the consensus view at the time was that this could lead to the impeachment of Reagan. In the end, it didn't, and that was maybe somewhat exaggerated. But nonetheless, I thought that this Reagan is in true peril now because of Iran-Contra.
Well, he had Alzheimer's, right?
He had Alzheimer's, and that was
Hey,
his, that was his defense.
don't you remember? It's like, well, he's not in the best of health, and he may not be able to remember. Even his critics were like saying, well, we can bookend this,
Right?
okay?
No, no, that was clearly his defense. That he just didn't know. I just didn't know. I mean, it's like well, I didn't know, and that's what in a way saved him because his national security advisor, Admiral Poindexter, told the congressional hearing, "Oh, I kept this away from the president." And I said, "Well, why did you do that? Don't you work for the president? Don't you have to inform me?" We needed plausible deniability. So just he told that's what he told the
And
congressional officers. We
Bush
needed plausible deny, so I never told the president what we were.
and Bush pardoned him.
That's right. He pardoned everybody. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was. But here, this is the Wall Street Journal story. The Trump administration has identified targets in Venezuela that include military facilities used to smuggle drugs. According to U.S. officials familiar with the matter, if President Trump decides to move forward with airstrikes, they said the targets would send a clear message to Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro that it's time to step down. So this has nothing to do with drugs. You've just said it. Even the reporter is saying this has nothing to do with anything. It's to send a message to Maduro, you have to go. And we're going to keep hitting you and hitting you until you go.
Well, we're going to keep hitting you until your generals flip.
Exactly. And that's the point. Exactly. It's a message to the generals and all the people around Maduro. Hey, cut him loose. Because we're just going to keep hitting you and hitting you. Um, and so I am quite sure that even as we speak, they're making offers to Maduro. If you step aside, we pinky promise that we will not prosecute you. We'll make no attempt to seize you and haul you off to the United States and bung you in prison like we did with Noriega. Absolutely, you will get immunity. We're not going to come after you if you step down. I'm absolutely sure that this is what they're telling Maduro. And if Maduro has any sense, and I'm sure he does, he's not buying any of these stories. Of course, if
Yeah,
he steps aside, the Americans are going to seize him, within 10 minutes and take him
right.
to the United States.
And Hugo Chavez, he died of cancer,
That's
George.
right.
Right.
That's
Okay.
exactly, exactly. While the president hasn't made a final decision on ordering land strikes, of course, he's made a final decision. The officials said a potential air campaign would focus on targets that sit at the nexus of the drug gangs and the Maduro regime. I wonder what the nexus is. Trump and his senior aides have been particularly focused on unsettling Maduro as the U.S. military has attacked boats allegedly carrying drugs in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific Ocean.
Well,
And
at least
how
they
are they
said
connected with Maduro? That's all
yeah,
left. So, yeah,
at least they said allegedly. Wow.
that's right.
Brownie point.
That's right. And then here, the potential targets under consideration include ports and airports. Oh, controlled by the military that are allegedly used to traffic drugs, including naval facilities and airstrips. So this is a pretty extensive list of targets: ports, airports, naval facilities, airstrips. I mean, you're going to be, and I'm sure all kinds of military bases, barracks. It's drugs. I mean, it's like they're
Yeah,
all involved in drugs.
what they're trying to do is to give the impression that the Trump administration knows what they're doing. But what they fail to address is it really a drug exporting country? I mean, they don't that's one thing they
Oh,
won't
that's right.
address.
That's exactly. Um, And then ahead of possible land strikes, the Trump administration has embarked on a messaging campaign to cast Maduro as the head of a drug trafficking enterprise that seeks to flood the US with drugs. It's very odd, because we talked about this before, how in the first term, all we heard was that Maduro was a communist. He was sitting there reading Marx and Lenin in his spare time. Now it turns out he's this drug kingpin. It's interesting how that transformation took place. Uh, but so, um, and then and then we have
Well, look, as George and I have pointed out, I don't know what is this the eighth or ninth paragraph, and then they started giving away
yeah,
how to put it. I mean, they demonstrate for their because they think they're real journalists a little bit of skepticism here, but
right,
you never see it
right.
in the lead
No,
ever.
there's nothing exactly, and no one gets to these articles in the eighth or ninth paragraph. And here's Secretary of State Rubio. He says you have a narco state in Venezuela run by a cartel. This is an operation against narco terrorists, the Al Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere.
Jesus.
So, so we're going back to the good old days.
Isn't
Al
he, isn't
Qaeda,
he, isn't he clever, George? This
exactly. It's so nice that we're back now with the Al Qaeda. That because that was such a great success. going after Al Qaeda.
Well,
Uh,
thank goodness it's not the ISIS of the Western Hemisphere.
Hitting targets on land would increase pressure on the dictator, and Trump allies have begun to suggest that he flee the country. Of course, they are. If I was Maduro, says Senator Rick Scott, is another one, he's a Florida senator, I would head to Russia or China right now. Um, and then Trump has said publicly that he may order airstrikes in Venezuela, and the Pentagon is sending America's most advanced aircraft carrier and its accompanying warships to the Caribbean. So forget about, what all those drug boats in the Caribbean they were hitting. Their airstrikes against Venezuela. Um, and then the U.S. has also conducted several bomber aircraft missions near the Venezuelan coast over the past 2 weeks, sending B-52s and B-1s.
But George, if okay, let's just say for the sake of argument, okay, these are drug boats, okay, for the sake of argument. Then why don't you just deal with that? I mean, why do you have to overthrow
Well,
the legal authority
yeah.
in Caracas? I mean, if these drug boats are fueling the scourge of drug abuse in the United States, why don't you just keep it that? Why do you have to do all these other things? I don't understand.
No, well, exactly, because even if you're doing this with the drug boats, that in itself is illegal. I mean, you don't have the authority to just go around shooting people because you think they're involved in drug trafficking. I mean, drug trafficking isn't by itself a capital crime. So just shooting people because you suspect them of being involved in drug trafficking, it's not going to be acceptable in the cities of America. Well, we shot him because we thought he was a drug dealer. Um, so, I mean, normally you'd say if you're engaged in some policing operation, you arrest people, and then you take them to trial. You don't just sort of shoot on sight. But then you got the next step. Well, what's this got to do with Maduro? I mean, now that you've gone, this is already ludicrous in its lack of any legal basis. And now on top of that, well, they're all somehow working for Maduro. Really? And what's
You
your
know what's
evidence of that?
what's really interesting, everyone, as George forensically covers this for us here, isn't it interesting that, first of all, George is right. During the 2019 coup attempt, he's a communist, okay? Um, but now it's all on drugs. But in our current session here, our 2000 podcast, Venezuela is known mostly for oil. There's no mention of it here
Yes.
whatsoever.
No, no, no. That's right.
So here's the Venezuela. It has the most known oil reserves
Right.
in the world.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
why are they getting into drugs? I mean,
That's right. But
it
it's
doesn't make
but
any
right.
sense.
They say, but what's interesting about that is that yes, it's absolutely sitting on top of oil reserves. I think there's a lot of mineral riches there. But if you overthrow Maduro, all you're going to do is create civil war. I mean, you're not going to have a stable government, that, somebody with, who's going to run the place in the interest of the oil industries, and everyone's going to get their oil and all their precious metals out. It's going to be a civil war. It's going to be a total, absolute fiasco. So you're not even going to get that. You're not even going to get those mineral riches that you think you're going to get.
You think that, through military operation, miraculously, some general is going to be transported to Caracas to give, which he has no right to, the keys to the kingdom to
Right,
their choosing?
right.
It doesn't work that
It
way.
doesn't. I mean, we still there's Libya. Now let's think. Libya
Oh
also
yeah, Libya. What happened? Oh,
exactly. That's also sitting on top of enormous oil riches, and you still 2011. So you have more. It's now almost 15 years. You still don't have a government there. So it's still mired in a civil war 15 years after that great NATO operation. And nobody even talks about Libya. It's amazing how little interest there is.
I think Sarkozy was the last guy to talk.
Exactly, that's right. Um, and then And then, but it says here, Venezuela's military has a sophisticated air defenses, including a substantial amount of Russian-made equipment. It's believed to operate 4 to 6 Russian-made S-300 air defense systems and man-portable systems, which could potentially detect and shoot down U.S. military aircraft. Experts say, while it isn't publicly known how well the S-300s work or how well trained Venezuela's air defense forces are, U.S. aircraft have recently ramped up flights near the country with the aim of mapping the country's air defenses. Well, this is really interesting because we obviously don't know how well they'll perform, but what would happen if they do start shooting down U.S. aircraft? How much support would there be for for this war? Would there be a rally around the flag? This horrible Maduro regime shooting down good, decent Americans, or would there be a rejection of
Or would
Russian
it be,
policy?
why are we doing this? Why are we
Right,
there?
exactly, exactly. I'm not sure
I
how
don't
what
know,
the public
George.
reaction would be.
I don't know. MAGA is restless. Okay, I came across quite a few articles about how um, they're trying to sell it to MAGA as this is somehow America first. It's not
Yes,
cutting them much ice,
I don't
George.
think
Not
so
much.
either. I don't think so. It,
Well, and then also everyone, what about a rush for the American border? You create millions of refugees as the
yes,
civil war that George is talking
right.
about. It disrupts the entire region. Do you think the countries around Venezuela appreciate people walking right
No,
into their
I think so.
country?
No,
They're not into that. Nobody's
no,
into that. Okay.
no.
And my heart goes out to these people, okay? You make it impossible to live where you are and you want to go somewhere else. I don't blame anybody for doing that, okay? But I blame people for creating instability to have
Right.
that happen, okay?
Yep.
I have empathy. I certainly do.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, and that will be the effect. You're not going to have a smooth transition. If you're using force to
George,
remove a political
there's
leader,
one statement. I worked in finance for a while, and there's one statement nobody ever wants to say. This time it will be different.
right?
Okay? That
Exactly.
is, you cannot say that.
Right. Exactly.
Never say that. You get fired.
Right.
This time it will be different.
Yeah. Exactly. Um,
Just
and
kick in the door, the roof will fall in, right?
that's right. Anyway, so there's it continues. But it says here, if airstrikes don't force Maduro out of power, they could potentially pressure his inner circle to turn against him, analysts say.
Yeah, well, this is what they tried in 2019, and it was a humiliating defeat.
It didn't work. Now this time, of course, they're going to apply more force, but that doesn't mean these things work. Because I don't know whether people kind of don't like being forced to do something. They don't like a gun being put to their head and hey, now do as we tell you. It's just there's something in the human nature that reacts against that kind of pressure. Um,
And having what's you probably I don't remember her name, Machado, have her become your
Machado, yeah.
president.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. Just being hauled into power by U.S. guns. I don't think that's going to work. Um, but it says, however, such a strategy carries tremendous risks and could potentially backfire if troops rally around the flag and put up a fight. Yeah, I think so. Um, that so anyway,
Well,
just the
George, I mean, going back to the ridiculous allegation that Venezuela is some kind of hub for
right.
illegal
This is what
drugs.
this is
But I
exactly
mean,
what.
I know you're getting to, but I think logically, if you create the semblance of a failed state, a la Libya, that would give many groups in Venezuela
Right.
say, well, the real economy is dead. Let's go
Yeah.
into drugs.
Yeah. No, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So this is the National Intelligence Council. This is from April 2025. So that's
This
basically
year, everyone, this
that
year.
7 months ago.
George and I probably did a podcast on that day.
That's right.
So it's not
Exactly.
long ago.
Not long ago. And it says Maduro regime leadership probably sometimes tolerates. The
Wow,
Trinidadia's presence.
that's a real confidence.
Yeah, probably
Where's that on the
sometimes.
confidence scale? Yeah.
That's right. The Trinidadia's presence in Venezuela, and some government officials may cooperate with TDA for financial gains. Instances of regime officials' cooperation with various armed and criminal groups, such as Colombia's National Liberation Army, have been ad hoc and reportedly driven by a regime's desire for help controlling or deterring perceived threat of invasion or for individual financial gain. And it says the Maduro regime generally does not impede illegal armed and criminal gangs from operating in Venezuela, but it does combat and seek to contain them when it fears they could destabilize the regime or when corrupt deals sour. Venezuela's security services lack the capacity to fully control Venezuelan territory, given the regime an interest in cooperating with armed groups for insight and control in areas outside the service's traditional areas of operation. Furthermore, combating such groups often results in personal losses, probably encouraging the regime at times to cooperate with some groups instead of contesting them. So it seems, I mean, this is the intelligence saying they don't like these groups, but they don't have the strength to crush them. And so they have to
And
be forced to
and
cooperate with
according
them.
to this, groups for insight. Okay,
Right.
so they may not be able to stop their activity, but they want to know what they're doing.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And then it says some mid to low level Venezuelan officials probably profit from Trinidadia's illicit activities. For example, local military officials have alerted other armed and criminal groups conducting aerial drug shipments to Venezuelan Air Force patrols and might have alerted Trinidadia's leadership of a planned
There's a
raid.
lot of mights and ifs
Not
and
about exactly, not exactly a confident finding. And then it says, while Venezuela's permissive environment enables Trinidad to operate, the Maduro regime probably does not have a policy of cooperating with Trinidad and is not directing Trinidad movement to and operations in the United States. So that's that as far as the administration is concerned. The intelligence community bases this judgment on Venezuelan law enforcement actions demonstrating the regime treats Trinidad as a threat, an uneasy mix of cooperation and confrontation rather than top-down directives characterizing the regime's ties to other armed groups and the decentralized makeup of Trinidad that would make such a relationship logistically challenging. And then furthermore, most of the intelligence community judges that intelligence indicating that regime leaders are directing or enabling Trinidad migration to the United States is not credible and would need reporting corroborated. So that's that. So I don't even say that this whole thing about this politicizing immigration into the United States, they're not even buying that. Most of the intelligence community judges that intelligence indicating that regime leaders are directing or enabling Trinidad migration to the United States is not credible. So that whole story saying it's not credible. The Maduro regime is not directing Trinidad to come to the United States and create mayhem in the United States. And so here it is. Venezuelan intelligence, military, and police services view Trinidad as a security threat and operate against it in ways that make it highly unlikely the two sides would cooperate in a strategic or consistent way. So
well, if you invade the country, that might change.
that exactly that you get rid of Maduro, you're going to strengthen Trinidad. I mean, it's clear from this very intelligence finding. You get rid of the central government, or throw the central government into chaos, you're going to strengthen Trinidad. And so and then the things here that the intelligence community has not observed the regime directing Trinidad, including to push migrants to the United States, which would probably require extensive coordination and funding between regime entities and Nicaragua leaders. Um, and now, just to confirm about the Drug Enforcement Administration, this is also 2025, and you can see here that here we have that in the United States, Nicaragua mainly operates within Venezuelan migrant communities. They do find facilitates the smuggling of thousands of Venezuelan migrants into the United States. But and they do work in some drug distribution. But what's the important thing is the trafficking and abuse of cocaine has been a serious threat to the United States for over 4 decades, and its persistence is a sustained concern. Colombia remains the primary source country for cocaine entering the United States. Mexico-based cartels obtain multi-ton cocaine shipments from South America and smuggle it via sea, air, or overland to Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean for subsequent movement to the United States. So it's basically it's Colombia and then Mexico. And since they're talking about fentanyl, fentanyl is manufactured. It's a synthetic drug. It's manufactured in Mexico. It's nothing. That's what Trump talks about. It comes from Mexico. It's nothing to do with Venezuela. So here it is. Approximately 84% of the domestic cocaine samples seized in 2024 by U.S. authorities were determined to be of Colombian origin, compared to 88% in 2023. And then so that's the serious thing. So there's no evidence that Venezuela is a significant player in the drug importation into the United States.
Yeah. But that's not going to stop what they have in mind, okay? It's so interesting, isn't it? I mean, Trump, his very negative disposition towards John Bolton, but he's fulfilling John Bolton's dream for
That's
him.
right.
Okay,
It's very yeah, it is very, but I don't know what exactly is driving this thing. I mean, I
well, I
think
mean, okay, is it a win? He wants a win.
well,
Well, I mean, I look at it, very broadly. This is how I look at this. And please, obviously, feel free to disagree. But this is not Fortress America, it's Fortress Hemisphere.
yeah,
This is what these people want. And George and I have talked about this, that don't get, America's overreach, we need to be restrained, but not our hemisphere. No. That's different. It's not different, but this is the
right,
argument they're making.
right,
And I think that, the Western Hemisphere has vast resources. I mean, really very, very rich. And the U.S. wants to control all of it.
yes,
And there have been reports, and I want to kind of one step back from some of the things that I said over the last few weeks. This deal to give Maduro, Maduro agreeing, we'll give you everything, well, whatever you want and all that. I was told by yesterday by some people that may not be as clear cut as it was reported. But nonetheless, even if such a deal were true and the Americans reject it, they're saying, no, we don't want a slice of cake. We want the whole bakery.
right,
Okay.
right,
And rearranging, well, it's hemispheric engineering. I think this is all about. Venezuela, it's considered a very much of a weak link. We'll find out. We'll find out. Okay.
right.
Then it's Nicaragua's targeted, Colombia, and
Yeah,
always forever in my entire life, Cuba. Okay.
right.
So the rearrangement of the entire Western Hemisphere. Why? Maybe because they think they can do it. Okay.
Well, I think that's right. I think that's what he does. I mean, he has this idea about the Monroe Doctrine. I don't think he quite understands what the Monroe Doctrine was, because it wasn't about, hey, America just basically runs the entire Western Hemisphere. It was about keeping out the imperial giants. I mean, America at the time, this is early 19th century, America was very weak and
Very
vulnerable,
weak and
and they were
small and
small,
literally small.
and they were very concerned about being menaced by the big empires of Europe, and so they thought they were going to essentially ensconce themselves in the Western Hemisphere. So that was what the Monroe Doctrine, that they would try to keep out the British and the French. It's not about, hey, we're going to run the whole thing. The problem with this theory that we can just run it is, well, the Americans have tried this before. It's not like, this is something new, and it hasn't been terribly successful. The Cuban operation really wasn't successful. I mean, just the Bay of Pigs, and then all the attempts to overthrow Castro, assassinate Castro, um, and the embargo against Cuba. It's still there. That communist government is still there. It's just, it's like 65 years later, more than 65 years later, it's still, the same government is still there. And then the civil wars of the Central America that went on for years and years. I mean, so it really hasn't been a huge success. So if Trump thinks that he's going to get a win, the historical record really doesn't
Well,
suggest
I
that
mean,
it will be a
to,
win.
to bring it up to closer to the present is that, well, if we regime change and get rid of Saddam, and democracy will flourish throughout the region. Okay.
Right,
This is the same kind of, hope, or, it's this unicorn thinking.
right,
Okay. I
right,
mean, considering the damage that sanctions have done to Venezuela, I mean, it truly is one of the most bizarre situations in the world today. One of the richest countries in the world has been impoverished
right,
by sanctions. Okay.
right.
I don't think there are going to be very many people. There are some could be on the Miami payroll, if you know
Yeah,
what I mean.
right.
But American forces are not going to be welcomed in
No, they're
Venezuela.
not. They're not. That's why the strategy, I think, is just to keep applying pressure, and then think that, hey, the pressure plus bribes. I mean, I think they're going to be, doling out money to these various generals here. Nice chunk of change, and then you can get Maduro out. And then I think that would be the win. Oh, look, Maduro's gone.
Oh
Fantastic.
yeah, now it's going to be a walk in the park.
He's now it's going
Really?
to be a walk in the park. It's hard to know. I mean, you can't buy people. I mean, you can, give them enough money, and
And you can
most
kill
people
people,
can be bought. So,
and you can kill people.
and you can kill people. So all of that can be tried. Um, but in terms of an invasion, I don't really see it. And if you do start on the process of bombing, I think it's just going to be keep bombing and bombing. I don't think that's going to give you regime change. I mean, they could try that in Iran. It's not going to do anything. And you could just keep
Well, I
bombing and
mean,
bombing. That only helps to reinforce support for the regime.
yeah, well, so you're going to take impoverished people and then you're going to start bombing them, and they're going to think this is better than
Right,
impoverishment. I mean, come on.
right,
No.
yeah,
And with the attempted overthrow of Hugo Chavez, and popular demand brought him back. I mean, there is agency in
right.
Venezuela. People are politically aware.
Yes.
Okay. Stop treating them like brown peasants, because that's exactly what the U.S. has
Right.
always done in this region. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's probably what Trump has in mind. That if the hey, we'll apply this pressure, apply the pressure, and then one fine day,
One
Maduro
final.
will be replaced. We'll have a new government, and Trump will be the hero of the hour. He has achieved this. It doesn't really work that way. And
Well, George,
and again,
if you were at a craps table, I mean, and this was your goal, are you going to throw the dice? I
right,
wouldn't suggest it.
right, right, right. Yeah, but so that's why as we look through these stories, the one theme that comes through is this is threats, 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 menace, and basically sending the message, get him out, and the threats stop. Well, it's just life will be very nice. Just get Maduro out, and we're not gonna do these covert operations. Get him out, and we're not gonna bomb you. Get him out, and we might even lift sanctions. So I'd wait a little bit on that. But that's the message. I mean, that's the message of all these stories, and of
Yeah.
course that military presence. Get him out, and then we'll stop.
Yeah. Well, the next person, if it's not imposed, they will probably continue the same policies, and it's not exporting drugs to the United States.
Right.
Okay, so what has changed?
Right.
It- it- this is ridiculous. You want to get rid of one person,
Yes.
and everything will miraculously change?
That's right. That's right. It is. It's very much within this tradition of, well, we got to get somehow the problem is Gaddafi, the problem is Saddam Hussein, the problem is Milosevic. You get him out, and then everything is going to be magically solved. But that's precisely the kind of thinking that Trump was supposed to turn his back on.
Back on.
That was what Trumpism was supposed to be about, making America great again, America first. That you weren't going to do this. You weren't going to go around demonizing countries and bullying countries because you don't like a particular political leader. That was what it was supposed to be about. But Trump seems to have sort of completely forgotten that. I mean, how is this any
Well,
different from anything else that past presidents haven't done?
from time to time, I mention the important thing that we have to look at geopolitics. It's also a policy of denial. It is to limit and probably eventually kick out Chinese influence. This is part of the calculation, somewhat less so when it comes to the Russians. But this is a policy of denial. Again, this is, ever since Trump started talking about William McKinley, he probably didn't even know he was president until someone said, he had this idea about the Western Hemisphere, and Trump really liked that idea. And it's basically a very old idea with new technology. And the Chinese have made huge inroads into South America because they build bridges and pharmaceutical operations and all that. I mean, people like that. What was it? I think it was for Colombia. I don't remember what country it was, but China built this monorail, a very 21st century cool. And then Tony Blinken sent some old trolleys from San Francisco that nobody wanted. Okay, I mean that you can visibly see, what the Chinese are willing to do, probably with strings attached. Don't get me wrong. Okay, fair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
with
Yeah,
strings attached. Okay, but the U.S. just it's a default position is sanctioned military. Okay,
right.
it's not subtle, folks.
No, 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 it isn't. But it's also interesting this with the United States, there's always this obsession. You keep coming back to this thing. It's like Gaddafi was a long, long obsession within the United States. I mean, when they finally, in 2011, I think this goes all the way back to the 1970s. That's when I first remembered how Americans were obsessed with Gaddafi. And it just goes on year in, year out. We've got to do something about Gaddafi. Reagan tried it, and then it's like, so it's the same thing with Maduro. Trump just sort of comes back to it. And of course, he's helped along in this with Marco Rubio, who has his own agenda, personal agenda, but also his own political agenda. Coming from Florida with his Cuban parentage. So it just, obsessed. People like that are obsessed about, communists in Latin America. And Trump just seemed to have bought into that. And you think, hey, I thought you were America first. And aren't you going to say, I don't care about, all of your obsessions about Cuba and everything else, what your family went through. Hey, you're in
And it
America
wasn't even
now.
under
This is
it
America.
was
We're not interested in what happened to your family, 70, 80 years ago.
and his parents fled Batista, not
Exactly.
Castro.
That's exactly right. Exactly. It's Batista, not even even that. He's not even the communist. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't, again, I asked you quite rhetorically about 10 minutes, 15 minutes ago. I said, does Trump think this is an easy win? Because it's fraught with risks,
Right.
huge risks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to see exactly why he would think this is an easy win. And it is interesting that he's doing this. His poll numbers are tanking. And it's clear from the people who are doing these poll surveys and saying the public is souring on all his foreign policy preoccupations. It's kind of wasn't his agenda. He was basically, it was a domestic policy agenda that he ran on. What he was going to do to improve the lives of Americans. He did
Well,
really
I mean,
wasn't
George, I
running
mean,
as a foreign policy president.
if what's the harm? Every year there's the General Assembly meeting in New York of the United Nations. But doesn't Trump go there and say, "Hey, Mr. Maduro, let's sit down and talk. What's all the fuss
No, no,
about
no,
here?"
no, no, no. He's already said.
But would MAGA cheer that? Of
No, Mag, of
course
course,
they would.
MAGA will do it. MAGA will do it. Yeah, yeah.
Meeting Kim Jong-un.
Right.
I mean,
That was yeah.
it was brilliant. It was
Yep.
brilliant.
Right.
Okay. I
That's
mean,
right.
that's what the MAGA people want. Let
That's
make
right.
a positive deal. You don't have to cajole and bully. I mean, make it. You're a deal maker. You don't need those as your tools.
No,
Sit
that's right.
down and make a deal.
That's right.
I,
But
I,
yeah,
this is
no, no,
not
no,
that hard. It's
no.
not this.
But what's striking is that Trump has explicitly rejected that because he had Rick Grenell talking with Maduro. They were negotiating. I mean, so they were working out a deals, and Maduro released some Americans who were then sent to the United States. So Grenell was actually involved in trying to create some kind of a modus vivendi between Venezuela and the United States. But Grenell was just simply brushed aside by Marco Rubio. And even after all those possible deals, the United States would have basically carte blanche for any future business enterprises in Venezuela. Really, a really good deal. Trump said no. It's like Trump, anything that doesn't involve Maduro stepping aside. Trump said, "I'm not going to accept this." So you know, that's not very MAGA. You
You
just
know, it's like so many other things. It's just so inexplicable. We're coming to the end of the year. I think one of the hardest blows for me was the negotiations with Iran. I mean, George and I swallowed it hook, line, and sinker, and we were real fools. Okay, it because I thought, yeah, Witkoff he says, it's not about enrichment. He gets on the plane. By the time you get back to Washington, it's all about enrichment.
right,
It's like, George and I like,
right,
well, what we said on Monday, well, deep
right,
six that because again, this is another thing here.
right.
When negotiations are possible,
Yeah,
they might fail. There's always a chance they can fail, but at least you
yes,
tried. There's
right.
none of that here. None
No,
of it.
no, no, no. That's right. So, then we kind of um, go back to the question: does Trump think that this is going to be an easy win? He may think that, um, but it's like he's juggling one more ball up in the air without really a great deal to show for it, and his time is kind of running out. I mean, it'll soon be a year since he's been in office, so you know he, he carry on like this, and you're going to end up with a failed presidency. You're
Well,
going to
I
walk
mean,
away with a
okay, well,
failed presidency. You've tried all sorts of things,
yeah.
and none of them has been terribly
Well,
successful.
let's look at the landscape here. Um, at least according to the Israel and the United States, unresolved issues with Iran. Okay, there you go. The Gaza plan,
That's kind of fairly fragile. Um,
fragile is being
is
generous. Okay,
generous,
escalating with Russia
escalating with Russia, exactly.
and telegraphing some kind of what do they like
Is
that?
yeah,
Kinetic. They love that word. Kinetic.
kinetic war in Venezuela. Yeah, no,
Wow.
you walk away and you say that's a failed presidency. So and that's what's so good is striking because you could actually have a successful presidency if you sign agreements. If you sign agreements, then people think, well, that's that people there's a good feeling about everyone gets around the table and and they sign some documents and then and then there's some they break out the champagne. This is popular. Everyone loves this. Every president who signed big agreements immediately got a boost in the polls because people feel relieved. Well, thank God we got that. We're not going to get a war and all the messy consequences. If you don't sign agreements, then people start getting nervous, and with good reason, because all sorts of terrible things could happen, as indeed in this case in Venezuela, bad things for the United States, but of course even more disastrously in Russia and Ukraine.
To finish off here, George and I obviously remember the run up to the war in Iraq in 2003. Remember, George, how much time and effort and resources the Bush administration went into selling that?
Yeah,
I mean, that was a major, major propaganda operation. I mean, they pulled out the stops. They
right.
and they tr they at least made a case,
Yeah,
a case I rejected at the time. I'm
right.
sure George did too. But they made a case. They're not really going through the motions of making a
No,
case. They're
no,
just jumping.
yeah.
And that I find that really quite astounding, considering these kinds of operations always fail one way or
Yeah,
another.
yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The Bush administration tried to make a case. They actually went to the UN Security Council. It now seems almost bizarre that they actually tried to get authorization from the UN Security Council. It just so happened that three of the five permanent members all said no, but they did actually go through the motions. Most other presidents, incidentally, don't go through the motions. Bill Clinton certainly didn't go through the motions in the case of Yugoslavia. And Trump certainly hasn't gone through any attempt like on Iran, the attacks on Iran, taking out their nuclear facilities, didn't try to get any kind of UN Security Council res resolution in support of that, even though it's supposedly a UN goal to make sure that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. So it should, in theory, be a decision for the UN Security Council to use force against Iran's nuclear facilities. But Trump didn't do that. And yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, they're just simply declaring, yeah, we're going to do it because he's head of Tren de Aragua and he's a narco terrorist. And then they say, well, yeah, but your own intelligence agencies are saying exactly the opposite. Well, I don't care.
Well, and Trump, through marketing and the force of his own personality, which, I give credit where credit's due, you know, did borrow a phrase from decades ago, remembering the forgotten man and woman. I don't see how this escapade, this caper, is going to help anyone in the MAGA movement at
No,
all.
no,
I
no,
just don't.
I don't think so either.
I know. I mean, again, to end up, what is this going to do to the oil markets? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, no,
I mean, the law of unintended consequences hits hard and fast. Immigration, destabilization of the entire hemisphere.
yeah,
Did Marco, have you thought about that? Or, you're probably not going to become president because nobody likes you and you're too short. Okay. You got nice suits. I give you
yeah,
that. I
yeah,
give you that.
yeah,
Okay. Good quaff. But so what are you going to do? You're going to be the general director of the board of the Western Hemisphere for all your cronies and Miami. Yeah,
yeah,
maybe that's what he's looking for. Again,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't see how it furthers the national interest and security of the United
No,
States.
no, no, not at all, not at all. And it's not even something that his own supporters desire because at least back in the Reagan era, you could say, hey, this is the Cold War, the communists are coming, this is a Soviet outpost in Latin America. That was the argument. Nicaragua is
I
a
remember it. Yeah, yeah.
example of the Kremlin, and we allow Nicaragua to thrive, then basically so the Soviet Union will exert its influence all over
In our
Latin America.
backyard. In our
Exactly, the
backyard.
Soviet Union will be in our backyard. I mean, it was always a fairly threadbare argument even then, but at least it's an argument. Here, you don't have any argument at all. I mean, the narco terrorist argument, your own intelligence agencies are saying no. He's not even Venezuela is a minor player in the drugs business, and Trendiaragua really it's something Venezuela government is fighting against the Trendiaragua. Not terribly successfully, but at least it is fighting against it. So they had the idea that he is head of this. It's nonsense. That's your own intelligence agency. It's not some lefties, from Colombia who are telling you this. So you don't even have the sort of the Reagan era threadbare justification to fall back on.
Yeah, the Reagan people did their work. They did the work. The Bush people did the work. Okay. I mean, I wasn't convinced. I'm sure George wasn't convinced. Okay. But the Trump people are not even doing the work. Okay. That's not a good thing. And like I said, I don't see how it furthers any
No.
security interest for the hemisphere of the United States or the American people.
Yeah, that's right.
That again, you see it all the time on Twitter. Is this what you voted for? All right,
I
everybody.
don't think so.
This is a conclusion of our 2000th
2000,
podcast.
number 2000, exactly. Yep. And tomorrow or Sunday, we're on to 2001. So we start the whole thing up again. New millennium.
All right, everybody. This is a Goggle with Peter and George. We're on locals. This winds up our Friday blockbuster. We always tend to do a Sunday one too for some reason or another. When I see 53 slides, okay, all right, George. All right, 53. I saw it today. Okay, I
Yeah.
saw it.
But we didn't
Okay.
actually look at all
We
53.
didn't look at all of them. Okay. George is well prepared. And then,
Exactly.
of course, everyone's favorite time of the week, 10 o'clock Eastern time on Monday, we do the live stream. Sorry about last week. There was,
Yeah. Right.
Gremlins in the Kremlin. Gremlins in the Kremlin. Oh, that's a slip. Gremlins in the internet. Okay.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And so we did the 2000, and then, Buddy says, yeah, 2000 podcasts, I labored and I slaved away.
And if I had $1 per pod, just one.
Exactly. I was slaving over a hot laptop, and I get no appreciation, no thanks. And I had it. He said, my buddy says, I've had it. So if you have any money lying around, any treasure chest, fistful of dollars, like $100 bills lying around, not doing anything useful, straight into the tip jar. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology. And we're going to get your Buddy off this whole soapbox about how much he does and he's never rewarded. So we don't want to hear that anymore. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye bye.